Hey folks, I'm William, this is Rune Forged, welcome to the channel. Today I'm going to be going over my most recent game of Warhammer The Old World, which we played online using warhall.eu. If you'd like to find out more about that, there's a link down in the description. This is a 2,000 point battle between my Dwarfen royal clan and my friend's Tomb King Mortuary Cult armies. Both of us are pretty new to the game, so definitely feel free to point out any mistakes that we might have made down in the comments section. All right, so looking at my army here, I have an Anvil of Doom with the Master Rune of Adamant to give it toughness 10. I've also got a King with full plate armor. He is my army's general. He has a great weapon. He's on a shield bearer for some additional wounds and some extra attacks. He's also got the Master Rune of Gromrel, which gives him a 2-up armor save, as well as the Rune of Preservation, which makes him immune to the Killing Blow and Multiple Wounds special rules. Very, very handy. He's also got a Rune of the Furnace for a 3-up ward save versus Flaming, as well as a Master Rune of Smiting, which means his attacks are going to be doing 1d6 damage. Very, very nasty character. And you can see him here in that massive unit of Longbeards, which we'll talk about in just a minute. I've also got a runesmith who also happens to be the battle standard bearer for my army, one of the perks of the Royal Clan's special detachment or army of infamy. His standard has the Master Rune of Grugny, which is going to give that unit and surrounding units some ward saves. He's also got full plate armor, a shield, a great weapon. He's also got 3 runes of spellbreaking, which are essentially auto dispels. Very, very handy. In my core here, I have a very large unit of 29 Longbeards, and they're upgraded to have great weapons and shields. This unit is also upgraded with an Elder, which is the champion, and a standard bearer. The Elder has the Rune of Passage, which gives the entire unit moves through cover, and the standard bearer has the Rune of Battle, which gives me +1 combat resolution, and the Stroll as Rune, which gives me the Vanguard special ability for that unit. We'll talk a little bit more about that in just a minute. In my special slots, I have a Bugman's Cart, which you can see deployed here behind the hill. And I've also got a Grudge Thrower with the Rune of Forging, which is going to let me reroll 1 misfire throughout the game. In my rare slots, I have a relatively large unit of 18 Iron Drakes who are drilled, and also have a champion, which I think is called an Iron Warden, who has been upgraded to Cinder Blast Bombs and the Troll Hammer Torpedo. So very, very nasty damage coming out there. And I also have a standard bearer with the Rune of Courage and also with the Stroll as Rune, giving me the Vanguard ability on that unit as well. All right, and then for my opponent's army, he has a High Priest who is his general over here on Skeletal Steed. He is a level 4 wizard with the Necromancy lore. He's also got Warding Splint, Hieratic Jar, Lore Familiar. In addition to that, he has this High Priest over here on the Necrolith Bone Dragon. Very scary. He's a level 4 wizard. He uses the Illusion Lore of Magic. He has an Orb of Petra, the Amulet of the Serpent, and that rounds him off. Then he's also got a Necrotect, which I think is embedded in this unit of Skeleton Archers over here. And that character has also has an Orb of Petra. In his core, he's got a unit of 6 Necroserpents, which are going to be deployed in ambush, so they're off the map right now. You can't see them. He's upgraded them with the Terrors Below, which is going to come into effect later in the game. He's also got a unit of 10 Skeleton Archers over here. Nothing too special about those. He's also got a unit of Tomb Swarms right here. Again, nothing too special about them. He's also got a unit of 6 Bow Ushabti deployed here on the hill. And then in his special slots, he's got 2 Tomb Scorpions, also with the Terrors Below, and they have the Ambusher special ability, so they'll also be coming in later in the game. In addition to that, he has a unit of Venerable Ushabti. I think there's 4 of those. I don't see anything particularly special in terms of the upgrades, other than they have a Venerable Ancient, so I guess that's like their unit champion in that unit as well. And then finally, in the rare slot, there is also a Casket of Souls. So those are the armies. I just want to talk a little bit about the general deployment overall. So what you're looking at right now is basically what the game looks like at the very end of the deployment. And also I've gone ahead and done my Vanguard moves on the Iron Drakes and the Longbeards because they both have the Stroll as Rune on their banners. The idea here is that if I do this correctly, my Iron Drakes should be able to fire their 18-inch Drake guns at the enemy on the very first turn. Spoiler alert, unfortunately, I do mess that up and I'm not able to get the full distance, so those end up being out of range. In terms of the deployment here, I think that I actually have stronger shooting than my opponent does with the big unit of Iron Drakes, the Grudge Thrower, and the Magic Missile from the Anvil of Doom. So if that were the case, I think that the right play might just kind of be to sit back and get a few turns of free shooting in before the enemy can actually make it over to my position. But I really wanted to test out the insane 27-inch movement that you can get using a combination of a unit and marching column, the Rune of Haste and Urgency from the Anvil, which basically lets you move again, as well as the Dwarf Cart, which gives +1 movement to units within range, and then combined with the Strolaz banner for, again, a total of 27 inches of movement on turn 1. And I just wanted to play around with that and see how it worked and what I could do with that strategy if I wanted to catapult that big unit of Longbeards up the map as quickly as possible. Looking at this deployment here, unfortunately, I did mess up a little bit. My Dwarven cart is actually now out of range of those Iron Drakes, so they're not going to be able to get the additional inch of movement that they were going to need to bring their Drake guns into range on turn 1. So a little bit of a misplay from me there. I think probably a better position for the Dwarf cart would maybe have to move the Longbeards over a little bit to the right and then sandwich the Dwarf cart in between the Anvil of Doom and the Longbeards, and then just advance the Dwarf cart up alongside the Longbeards and the Iron Drakes as the game progresses. As it stands, I'm still a little bit confused about what I should be doing with my Dwarf cart, other than trying to keep it in range for the movement buff, which I failed to do this game. I guess I can just use it kind of as chaff if I need to, or to get some sort of supporting charge, like in the flank or the rear of a unit that's being attacked by the Longbeards or the Iron Drakes. But other than the movement buffs that the cart gives, I really don't know what else to do with it. So definitely let me know your thoughts down in the comments. In terms of my opening strategy for this game, really I'm just going to do a full send. I'm just going to throw my army down the field and hope it works. I really want to get my Longbeards into the fight as soon as possible. This unit of Bow Shopti sitting here on the hill is looking like a pretty juicy target. So if I can make to them, I'm pretty sure that I can just completely wipe them out, no problem. I would also like to pick up this High Priest if I can, because he is both the enemy army's general, and I've also done Striking a Grudge, the Royal Clan special rule on that unit. So if I do manage to take him out, that's going to be an additional 175 victory points, which is going to put me at a very, very large advantage. Also, I'll be getting rid of that unit, which means a lot of his magical capabilities are going to be shut down, which is what I'm going for. I would love to get the Longbeards into the High Priest on a dragon, but I think my opponent is aware of just how nasty this unit of Longbeards is, especially with the king embedded in it. And I had a hunch that he would actively try to avoid that unit with the dragon as much as possible. Other than that, I'm really not sure what a lot of his army does. I'm particularly worried about the sheer amount of magic coming out from the 2 level 4 wizards, and I think the Casket of Souls is actually a wizard as well. So I really want, and I actually have no idea what the Casket of Souls does, period. So I really am going to be focused on trying to deal with the Casket of Souls as well as his 2 high-level magic users. Don't know exactly how I'm going to do that yet, because I don't think he's going to let me catch them with any of my Longbeards, basically. But yeah, I guess we'll have to wait and see how it all turns out. All right, so this is what the board looks like at the end of my turn 1. The important things that happened this turn was I got the armor buff off on the Longbeards from the Anvil, and I also got the Rune of Haste and Urgency, which lets me double move essentially. So I was able to catapult this unit of Longbeards all the way up the board, and I was able to do a free redress the ranks on my last movement because of Drilled. So now I am basically 1 inch away from that very juicy looking unit of Ushabti with bows, and I don't really think they can get away from me barring some sort of magical intervention. So they are my primary target right now. I am also, I think this is probably a flank charge for this dragon as well. I kind of welcome that charge. It really is kind of bait. I think that even if everything on this side of the map comes into the Longbeards this turn, I think the Longbeards probably still win, in large part because I'll be able to challenge, and he'll have to accept with either his general, which is going to give me an additional 175 victory points, or he's going to have to accept the dragon. And I think, I could be wrong on this, but I'm pretty sure the king just beats that dragon. largely due to the Master Rune of Smiting, where I'm doing D6 wounds. And I'm immune to killing blow and multiple wounds. So if he has that, it's not going to be a factor. So this is basically a very juicy bait for him to kind of charge in here and try to take on this big unit. I don't think he's going to go for it. My opponent's pretty aware of how nasty this unit is, and my prediction was he would just kind of fly over and try to evade with as many units as possible. He actually comes up with a pretty clever solution, which ends up delaying me a little bit. But we'll talk about that on his turn. But yeah, basically just full send everything in my army. I'm moving it up the board. I'm trying to get these Iron Drakes in range. Obviously, I've catapulted the Longbeards up. Moved the card over here. Hopefully, I'm still within 6 inches here for the additional movement buff for these Iron Drakes, but I actually can't remember. What else important happened in this turn? Oh yeah, shooting. But yeah, by some miracle, my Grudge Thrower actually does something this game. Pretty bad track record on the Grudge Thrower so far over my first 4 games. But it does manage to just completely one-shot the Casket of Souls, like before it even gets a chance to do anything. Pretty lucky on my part in order to pick that off on turn 1. And it probably does have implications on the rest of the game. I think there were a couple spellcasting checks that my opponent failed that he would have succeeded if the Casket was still alive. So good showing from the Bolt Thrower, Bolt Thrower. Good showing from the Grudge Thrower this game. I think it actually managed to pay for itself this game, which is fantastic. So even if it does manage to get picked off, I think that is definitely a win. I think I did a little bit of damage on this Venerable Ushabti unit from the Iron Drakes, but nothing too significant. I think it was just a single wound. I don't think the magic missile from the Anvil didn't go off. I think I just failed the cast on that one. So a little bit unfortunate there. But overall, a pretty good turn 1 for the Dwarves. So moving into turn 1 for my opponent, this is also a very important turn. Basically, the only thing that's going to save these Ushabti, at least in my mind, is going to be some sort of magical shenanigans. And my opponent does try to cast several different spells to try and save them. I think he tries to put a spell on the Longbeards that would prevent them from charging next turn. I automatically dispelled that with my Rune of Spellbreaking. I think he tried to put Fly on the Ushabti as well, and I can't remember if I dispelled that or if he failed it. So I may have actually done something incorrectly here. He does actually end up charging the Longbeards with this unit of swarms. Which actually means that I wouldn't be able to dispel anything. I'm pretty sure it also means I can't use my Runes of Spellbreaking while I'm in close combat, which was a really good strategy on his part. He also managed to make the swarms ethereal. And unfortunately, despite the fact that this whole unit has flaming attacks, only the king actually has a magical weapon. So he's the only one that's able to do damage to the swarms, and he's actually not in base-to-base contact. So I'm only getting 1 attack a turn. I'm not able to take it out as fast as I would have liked. We'll get to that in just a second. Anyway, there's a lot of very powerful magic being flown around. I managed to dispel a lot of the hexes and enchantments that come out in that initial command phase of the game. I think I do accidentally dispel some of the conveyance spells that happen in the movement phase, even though I'm in close combat, so I wasn't actually allowed to do that. So hopefully that wasn't too impactful on the game overall. In terms of movement, basically my opponent just kind of moves up the field. The dragon, I think in my opinion, wisely avoids the unit of Longbeards and just tries to get into my back line. I can't remember what unit it was, but he did manage to take out 2 of the Iron Drakes here. Bringing me down to a total of 16. In the close combat phase, even though I don't have any magical weapons except for my king, I do manage to do a little bit of damage, I think, to the swarms, and then also just I win on massive amounts of combat resolution in this unit. So a lot of them do crumble and they take a ton of wounds. So my opponent does give ground here. I don't know. I guess my thought process is I'm just going to wait and charge into this unit. I'm not sure. Maybe I should have done a follow-up move into them. I can't remember how that played out. We might have a screenshot missing here. But I do end up getting into close combat with that unit of Ushabti on the next turn, because it is my turn coming up. So let's go ahead and move into that now. All right, so I don't think there was much happening for magic on my side during this turn. Basically, just kind of spoiler alert, as soon as this High Priest on the dragon gets within 24 inches of my anvil, I don't think that I get off another successful spell cast for the rest of the game, which is a little bit unfortunate, and kind of shows the difference between just the power of level 4 casters versus my level 3 anvil. Hashtag make the anvil level 4, please. Probably a little bit biased. In terms of shooting, I think that the Iron Drakes managed to take out 1 of the Venerable Ushabti, which is, very nice. I appreciate that. Also able to move this cart out of the way during my movement phase. And I can't remember, like I said, I can't remember if I charged into the Ushabti or if I followed up after, after the Swarms gave ground, but I got into combat with those Ushabti. And as you can see from the screenshot here, I did manage to completely wipe them out in a single turn, which is not unexpected. This is a very, very nasty unit. The king was in base-to-base contact with them, so he's getting his full attacks with multiple wounds. Yeah, it was not pretty. And then it looks like I did do a follow-up move, or I guess it would have been, I did an overrun move into the tomb swarms here. So very, very good there. So now my guys are in combat. I'm not going to be able to get shot at next turn, which is good. And I'm continuing the reign of terror on the Longbeard, just constantly pushing forward. I would love to pick off this High Priest on Skeletal Steed. I don't think it ends up working out that way, but that is kind of my intention, just kind of running straight forward until I run out of things to destroy. I don't think there's anything else that really happens in this turn notable, so we'll go ahead and move on to my opponent's turn 2. All right, so I think the biggest thing to talk about on my opponent's turn 2 is the arrival of the Necro Serpents via ambush / I think it's called the Terrors Below. And it's really, really nasty ability, especially against dwarves. Essentially, it makes you take an initiative test, a number of initiative tests equal to the unit strength of the unit that's coming in. And I think this is like 18 unit strength right here, because I think they're 3 wounds each. They're monstrous something or other. So I had to take 18 initiative tests, which means, and I'm a dwarf, and I have initiative 2. So I'm basically taking, I'm basically failing 2/3 of all initiative tests that I take. So I do end up losing a pretty significant amount of this unit. When we first did it, I misunderstood how the initiative test worked, and I ended up removing a lot fewer models than I was supposed to. But we do end up catching this, and I end up removing more later on. So he actually did a lot more damage than it shows here. I think I only removed like 6 or something, and I think it actually did like closer to 10 or 12. Very, very nasty ability, especially versus dwarves who have such low initiative. This was kind of, I think, my opponent's plan when he built the list. He's like, this is how I'm going to deal with this big unit of Longbeards. In retrospect, I think that this might have been a little bit of a misplay on my opponent's side. Putting these guys in the charge arc of this unit of Longbeards is pretty much essentially dooming them to death, assuming that he can't get off any magic to shield them in some way, like to move them or shield them. I think this actually ends up being a pretty significant problem for him later in the game, but we'll get to that in just a minute. Other important things that happened this turn was that the dragon actually managed to get a flanking charge on my unit of Iron Drakes here. I did not see that coming. I was expecting him to charge into the Anvil here. I guess I didn't consider the fact that he might be in line of sight here. And if he did get into the Anvil, I think that there's a reasonable chance that the Anvil survives. It is toughness 10. So he is wounding on 6s. One possible counterpoint to that is I do believe this dragon has poison through some means or another, which means that hit rolls of 6 are automatically wounding, and that could be a problem for me. But I think there's a very real chance that he actually doesn't ever kill the Anvil, and even if he does, that dragon's going to be tied up for the rest of the game, and that is probably fine for me. If he gets the Anvil but he doesn't get to do much else, maybe he gets the Anvil and the Grudge Thrower, but I don't think that's really that big of a deal. I think I still probably win in that event as long as I pick up some additional points. But he doesn't do that at all. He ends up charging the Iron Drakes. Because I get a free pivot though, so basically I'm aligning like perpendicular to what it looks like now, I actually gain a lot of distance, and I think I roll like a 10 on my flea roll, even accounting for my stubby dwarven legs. So I actually managed to get pretty far away from this dragon. And I am fairly safe here, at least for a turn. He also manages to do some healing on the Venerable Ushabti, and I guess he actually gets to bring back an additional model above and beyond what he actually had in the unit. I don't know exactly how that works, but seems pretty nasty. He also managed to make this unit of Venerable Ushabti ethereal, which is actually a huge problem for me, because like as I mentioned earlier, like basically the only magic damage in my army is on my king and on the Anvil, and the Anvil is basically being completely shut down by this level 4 caster that's kind of sitting in front of it for the rest of the game. So I really don't have a good way of dealing with this unit. Anything else that happens here this turn? He does move out of the way with his general on the skeletal steed. Good reaction there for sure, because I definitely want to get that unit. I just don't have a good way of getting at it right now. So let's go ahead and move on to Dwarf Turn 3. So again, just to point out, my Anvil's being completely shut down here by this level 4 caster, just kind of parked out in front of him. So no magic coming out from the Anvil this turn. I do move my cart to threaten his general on Skeletal Steed. I actually have no idea whether or not the cart wins this, but I figured there wasn't really any harm in trying, as I didn't really see a better use for this anywhere else. I figured that this combat down here with the Iron Drakes is probably pretty doomed. If the Dragon and the Ushabti make it in, it looks like they're both going to. I don't think that the Longbeards really need the support of the cart in this combat up here. I anticipate just completely wiping these guys in just a turn or two. I don't think that I'm going to make any meaningful progress here on these archers, especially since they are in the woods, and chariots don't like woods. They don't do very well in there, so I wanted to avoid that. So I thought, well, I might as well just do a Hail Mary and see if I can take out this this general here. You know, worst case scenario, I lose 65 points from the cart, and best case scenario, I get like a ton of points. I think it's like almost like 450 points or something for taking this unit out, because again, he is the army's general, and I've done striking a grudge on him for an additional 75 victory points. So that is the plan there. Let's see what else important happens in this turn. I do manage to rally the Iron Drakes, which is fantastic. The enemy does put something miasma on them, so they're like really slow now, and they're not doing great right now, but they're holding the line. I do I wanted to put these shots into the Venerable Ushabti, but as I mentioned earlier, they are ethereal and therefore are immune to my damage. I do think that ethereal is pretty annoying, especially for dwarves who don't have a ton of access to magic missiles or magical damage to deal with them. You know, again, I'm probably biased on this, but it would be really nice if flaming worked against ethereal. I don't think that's completely insane. Even if I had some penalty to hit them, but just giving me the ability to wound them at all would be really great. I don't like the hard binary of if you have magic, you can hurt them, and if you don't have magic, you can't do anything. That does not feel particularly good. Anyway, regardless of that balanced tangent, I ended up putting all my shots into the dragon over here. Well, I guess not all of them. Maybe some of them couldn't shoot, but my shots from the Iron Drakes go into the dragon. Don't manage to inflict a single wound. Not exactly surprising. I wish the Trollhammer Torpedo had been managed to do something, but I think it actually managed to he managed to take it on his regen save, so he didn't actually manage to inflict that damage. That would have been really nice though. I think the Grudge Thrower, before this unit actually got into combat up here, because I think it was stuck on the swarms for their turn, and after I think I actually ended up just destroying the swarms in my turn 3, and then overrunning into these Necro Serpents. And during my shooting phase before that happened, I think that the Grudge Thrower managed to inflict 2 wounds on one of these Necro Serpents. So pretty good. You know, I think this might be the best showing that the Grudge Thrower has had in all of my 4 games so far. And in one game I took 2 and still didn't do very much. So feeling pretty good about the Grudge Thrower this game. Overall, still not sure about how I feel about it, but we'll talk about that at the end. All right, moving into my opponent's turn 3. The Tomb Scorpions do ambush in. Unfortunately, are not able to do very much on the turn that they come in. The Tomb King General manages to get really far away with the aid of Spectral Steed, so I'm not likely to catch him. Honestly, there's probably no way that I'm catching him this game. Not looking good in terms of picking up those additional victory points. The Venerable Ushabti and the Bone Dragon go ahead and charge into the unit of Iron Drakes. I do some damage on the stand and shoot here. I think I take out one Venerable Ushabti and do some pretty significant damage to a second one, so not bad for the Iron Drakes there. Unfortunately, during that close combat, I think like 8 Iron Drakes went down between the Dragon and the Venerable Ushabti, so definitely not winning this combat. I do lose this combat. I pass my break check. I think I'm supposed to fall back in good order here, but I couldn't actually figure out a way to do it in a way that didn't like clip this building. Which is impassable terrain. So if you guys know like what was supposed to happen in the situation, please let me know. Basically, we just played it like I moved back to the tip of the building and then I couldn't really go any further, so I just stopped. If that is not the way that it's supposed to be played, please let me know down in the comments like what was supposed to happen there. And you know, it would be amazing if you could provide like a page reference so I could go look at it later. But even if you just know and you don't have time to look at the page reference, just please let me know down in the comments. Unfortunately for the Tomb Kings, I do manage to completely wipe out the unit of Necro Serpents in this close combat phase. Again, not even close, just completely obliterating them. My king is in close combat, so he's getting all of his attacks with multiple wounds. It's, you know, it's not good for them. I do my free reform at the end of that close combat phase. I keep making this mistake though. I don't think this is actually a legal reform. I'm allowed to rotate up to 180 degrees, but I think I'm moving more than double my move characteristics. Some of these dwarves are going way more than 6 inches, so I really need to watch out for that. I keep doing this like in every game. I really need to remember not to do that. Let me know down in the comments if there's a good way to figure out if an individual model has moved more than double its movement characteristic. Like, do I really have to measure like where individual models were? It just seems like a lot of hassle. So my next question is like, what is the correct way to reform this unit so that I can like reorient myself down like this way? It doesn't end up mattering because, spoiler, the game ends shortly after this, but I imagine this is going to happen a lot where my Longbeard just kind of obliterates something off in the corner or off on the side, and then they have to try to get back in the fight. So what is the correct reform here so that I can start looking back towards the enemy? I have drilled here. I have my free reformed. So like, what should I be doing in order to do this? Do I need to like redress the ranks with my drilled to get myself into like, try to get myself back into marching column, or at least get a less wide frontage so that it's not as much movement when I do my free pivot? Or is there some other tactic that I need to be doing? Like, can I do a turn maneuver here? Can I just do a complete like 180 degree turn, like standing in place and just, you know, do that maneuver instead? Let me know down in the comments what the right play is here. I'd really appreciate it. So to go back to the game here, basically my opponent concedes at the end of turn 3. I don't know. This game might be winnable if he's able to pick up the Iron Drakes, the Anvil, and the Grudge Thrower in the next 3 turns. I don't know how likely that is to happen, but he did choose to concede here, which, you know, I think is fine. So pretty convincing win for the Dwarves overall. I do feel pretty good about this game with a couple of exceptions, and we'll talk about those. So I think that pretty much everything did the job that it was supposed to do this game. I don't really have any complaints about any of the units. The Dwarf Cart probably contributed the least, but I think that I'm probably undervaluing the additional movement that I get as part of that 27-inch super movement on the first turn if everything goes correctly. So I mean, for 65 points, it's kind of hard to go wrong. So I think everything here did exactly what it was supposed to do. In terms of mistakes or things that I would probably do differently, I did make a few rules errors this game. I think I probably dispelled some things when I wasn't allowed to when I was in close combat, so I need to pay attention to that. And then also that reform that I did at the end of the game, I don't think that was legal either. The reform didn't have any impact on the game because it ended shortly thereafter, but it is possible that one of those spells that I dispelled, could have probably maybe changed the game. So definitely need to watch out for that in the future. Also, I'm still really not sure what to do with that cart. You know, I know conceptually I should be using it as chaff or as supporting charges, but there didn't seem to be any opportunities to use it that way in this game. I also messed up my deployment with the cart. I wasn't within 6 inches of the Iron Drakes after their Vanguard move, so that was a mistake. In terms of things that I learned this game, I think that Ethereal is going to be a real problem for this army. I'm really worried about matchups against Bretonnia with the Green Knight. I think they could probably get in the back line, really mess up my unit of Iron Drakes. They could take out my Stone Thrower. Given enough time, they could probably take out the Anvil. I did have a magical weapon on the Anvil at some point in this list. I took it off because it didn't really come up, but I am a little bit worried about that. It's too late to change my list now, but yeah, I'm worried about Ethereal. Also, magic is super oppressive, and I'm actually really worried about how powerful magic is, and how few tools that I seem to have to deal with it. The Anvil only dispelling as a level 3, the Rune Priest only dispelling as level 1. Really, my only answer to these really powerful magical spells is the Runes of Spellbreaking. And based on my interpretation of the rules, that means that I would otherwise have to be eligible for Wizardly Dispel, which means I have to be within 18 inches and not engaged in combat. And that unit is going to be engaged in combat, hopefully most of the time. And if I put it anywhere else, like in any other unit, it's not going to be in range to dispel anything. So it really does feel like a catch-22 in terms of dispelling magic. And I'm not sure how I'm going to deal with that. I mean, like, one possible answer is to move it out of the unit and just have it maybe travel along behind that main unit of Longbeards. but he's not going to be able to keep up. Things are going to get around behind and probably be able to pick him off. Right now, he is the battle standard bearer for my army as well. And he's got the very powerful Banner of Grungni on there. And that's not going to be, I'm not going to be getting that buff. So I'd have to find an additional, an additional chunk of points to add an additional runesmith to my army. And it just doesn't seem feasible. I just don't know how to deal with it. So if anybody has any thoughts or suggestions, definitely let me know. And if I don't manage to connect with something pretty early in the game, especially if my Anvil of Doom is getting dispelled, what's it called? Rune of Haste and Urgency lets me double move. I'm not convinced that unit of Longbeard is going to be able to catch anybody in order to get in close combat with them. Luckily so far, I mean, I've been pretty lucky and I've been able to get into close combat with things with that unit of Longbeards, but I think really good opponents, really savvy opponents are going to shut that down. So I'm a little bit worried about how I'm going to deal with that. But yeah, I mean, I overall can't complain. A couple of minor rules errors on my part. I did learn a couple things, which is good. Yeah, so overall a pretty good game. But anyway, if you have enjoyed this video, please consider checking out this next battle report, which should be popping up on your screen right about now. But I think that's about it for now. Thank you so much for watching and have a wonderful day.